love to hand it off to you, Alexia.
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. I will share my screen.
Yes,
That's
I'll stop
okay.
sharing.
Okay, let's see. And it is 6 a.m. like you mentioned, so I apologize for any like raspiness in my voice or anything.
You're awesome. You're good.
Okay. All right. Oh, I didn't need to do that. I need to do this. All right, you can see this all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, today we're going to be talking about designing games with Figma. Let me know if there's any questions that come through the chat, and I can stop and just answer
Yeah,
them and you can talk it
great
over.
thing, Alexia. I think you.
Um,
Hey, sorry. I think you're still not on the presenter mode, or maybe the presentation window is not something you have shared with us. I'm still seeing
oh,
the
I see.
Figma slide thing. Oh yeah, here you
How's
go.
that? Okay, cool. Thank you. Um, so for the presentation, I'll just go over a bit about me, and then I'm going to go do a deep dive on a game that I made called Grift Scam Tycoon. It's a mobile game, and we'll go into how it was made with Unity and Figma. And then we'll talk about some takeaways. Throughout the presentation, I'll be popping over to Figma and maybe some videos and even Unity, just to take a look at how these things were made, and then Q&A. So a bit about me, I'm Alexia. I just published Video Game Design for Dummies. I'm in Los Angeles in the United States, and that's why it's so early here. I also just published another book called Where Are the Grackles, which is a puzzle adventure. And I teach at Art Center, which is in Pasadena in Los Angeles. I teach design as well as UX design, and I use Figma a lot in our classes. We often make games using Figma and Figma prototypes. So some of the games that I've published, I had a small studio after I left Niantic and Meta. I started a small narrative game studio where we made a demo for Steam Next Fest. We made a few mobile games, and all the way over on the right is Grift Scam Tycoon, which is what we'll be going over today. Previous to that, I was working at Niantic. I created Peridot, so I took that game from prototype into launch, which was a pet simulator game. It was all augmented reality, which is like camera pass-through, and we use Figma a lot in our workflows at Niantic as well. Before that, I was at Meta working on Horizon Worlds. I'm currently at Meta again. I boomeranged there, and I'm working on VR and mobile platforms for our virtual world and the content that's within it. Before that, I worked with the founder of Second Life. Maybe you might be old enough to know Second Life, or you've heard of it, or maybe you've even tried it out. But we made High Fidelity, which was a VR platform, very much like Second Life, where you could like create your own worlds and create your own avatars, sort of like VR chat. So I got into game design because I really loved art and I really loved technology, and I had grown up with dial-up had come to be when I was probably around 10 of the internet, and we started getting all of these things on the internet that were just wild and wacky, and video games started happening more mainstream, and I was really interested in them. So I got my undergrad at University of Central Florida in the United States in game design. And I had started an internship making serious games, and then I had got my graduate degree, and I focused on augmented reality. I was really interested in Pokemon Go at that time and Ingress at Niantic, and I was like, I really want to go to Niantic. That's my dream. So I did a ton of game jams, which are like weekend long hackathons. I have a few listed here, like Global Game Jam is a global event. Ludum Dare is also a global event. They do it online a lot of the times. And then itch.io, they have a lot of game jams posted as well that you can just do with your friends or your coworkers or your peers online. So you make a game over the weekend and you hack away and hopefully have something by the end of the weekend. I also did a lot of personal projects, including like card games. I made a card game for interacting with people in the real world. I also just made a ton of games on the side and a lot of things that used peripherals like hand tracking and VR headsets and things like that. So these are just a few of the personal projects that I had. Some were from Global Game Jam. Some were from projects that I had at work with colleagues. And that was a few of the card games that I had made. So I would highly encourage going to game jams. I'm not totally sure about the community in Dubai, but I'm sure that there's a global game jam around there. It's usually in January. The differences between software and game development, I like to talk about this because I feel like the last time I did this talk with the community in Seattle, a lot of people were coming from enterprise software and they were really interested in making games with Figma. So I wanted to talk about how games aren't for utility. Oftentimes you're solving a problem and there's a job to be done with the software that you're making. But a lot of the development time for games is allocated to playtesting because you need to make things feel right and you need to make things feel fun. And oftentimes that means you have to get a lot of different perspectives and understand what feeling you're trying to evoke from your software rather than just making it for utility. Also, the software that you're using for development can be different. Like we're going to look at Unity today. You might use Unity for some software that is not for games. I've used Unity to make just because I know how to use it so well. I've used it for things that are for like project management. But oftentimes you use Unreal and Godot for games. And then a lot of games are very artwork heavy. You might have a text adventure or an incremental game that's mostly numbers, but oftentimes you have artwork in games so that you're evoking more of a feeling from the players. So I have done a lot of personal projects. I've made my own game studio and created my own projects there. And having your own IP can really pay off as far as owning that IP, that intellectual property, and being able to, like, I created a book because I was able to use my own examples. So it did pay off for me. And I think that having your own work rather than just working at companies is really important because you have full control of it over it and you can use it as examples anywhere that you want to and you can post it anywhere that you want to and you have that freedom. All right, so now we're going to talk about Grift. Grift is a mobile game that we made that's based around scamming people on Instagram, and it's where like a bot comes into your DMs and wants to scam you and get your money. So we made a game around that, and it's around like social commentary. And we also based it around, if you know what Picrew is like a bot, is like a doll maker, like a Japanese doll maker. And we wanted to base the mechanic around that. So you pick your items here, and then you create your avatar, and then you go have targets, and you talk with them. I have some videos to show you. We can go through that. I do have links for getting it on Google Play and App Store. I think that the video for, ooh, how do I go back? Go back. Link. I'm gonna share this tab. Can you see the App Store preview now?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the game, you create bots, like I said, with the avatar maker. You can choose all the accessories, and each of the accessories has different numbers associated with it that impact how you are interacting with the target. So you're talking with the target here. Let me redo this. You talk with them, you ask for them for money, and you progressively get higher and higher targets, like more challenging targets. All right, let me go back. Okay. So I'm gonna pop into Unity and take a look at that. Let me see if I can change this sharing. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick and then I'm gonna open my other software.
Sure. While you're doing that, everyone, I just like pasted some of the links for Alexia book. So do have a look at it. Also, her the link she mentioned, h.io for the jams, is a good reference to have it. Some interesting stuff happening over there. And yeah, over to you, Alexia.
Have, have you all ever been to a game jam?
Not really. I've been to design jams, but game jam, I
Yeah.
think I'd love to have it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just configuring my screens. Okay, here we go.
No problem.
Okay, so this is Unity, and if you don't know what Unity is a game engine. It's really great for 2D games. I have made, it does a lot of 3D games. I've made 3D games in it too. But what I really like about this is I can make the things in Figma, and there's Figma importers that you can use to import all of your frames into it. So you just have it on the canvas really easily. There's also simulators, so you know how in Figma you can change the device and see what different devices are there and how it looks with your frame. You can do the same thing with Unity, and you can even uh, check like the safe area in the simulator to make sure that your images and your buttons aren't running over the safe space. So I'll go ahead and press play. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I already have played this through, so I have a lot of targets here, and the general flow is you select target, you have all of the likes and associated information with it, you have some of the conversation that you've unlocked here. You can go create a bot, and I've already created all of these. I think I will just go and create, can I make a new one? Let's see. Let's just look at the scams here. So I can talk with them. The conversation stalls after a bit if I haven't talked with them, and the goal is to just develop their trust and ask them for money eventually. So you talk with them. The timing of each thing depends on, or the trust depends on the timing of when you are actually asking them for money and scamming them. But overall, that's how the game works. You can buy things in the shop. Oh, there we go. And new accessories are unlocked as you get more money from scamming people. So for Unity, you have items in the hierarchy here. So I have all of my canvases, which basically aligns with the things that I would have in Figma, but they're interactive and they're looped into the game systems. Each game object here has components, so you have like your scripts associated with it, as well as any rectangles or panels or anchors that you need to make the UI look how it looks. And then you have the project hierarchy that has all your UI and such in there. So that's just a bit about Unity. I do have the Figma importer linked in the end of the slides as well, and we'll to that. Okay, so now that we're all on the same page about Grift, I'm gonna go back to my presentation. Let's see. All right. So to make this game and get it into Unity, we did all of this design process. And I'm sure that you all are very familiar with this design process. You define your goals, you research, brainstorm, you make your mockups and your flows, you make your game systems if you are working on your game systems for this, prototype, code and art, playtest, and then launch it. So I noted where we used Figma throughout the process, which was a lot of it. I used it to research and brainstorm and all of these things, and we'll go through that. So for defining goals, what we did for Grift is we wanted to make a free-to-play 2D game that had social commentary on scams and hustle culture using this doll maker mechanic, like I mentioned. For research, I used Figma. I'll use Figma or PowerPoint, but I usually use Figma just because it's just a better interface for collaboration. I just grab a bunch of layouts that I'm interested in. So games like Papers, Please, even dating apps, other games, and Pit Crew, and just put it all into one area so I can figure out where I want to draw my inspiration from for my layouts. And then I do the same thing for rendering. Like I want to have strokes be a certain aesthetic, and I want the icons to be a certain aesthetic, and all of the characters. And this was really important because we did hire a character artist for all of the characters that you saw in there and all of the components and pieces and accessories. So I needed to come up with an art style guide to help her figure out what we wanted to have for these characters and the aesthetic. So I also had images for icons, images for the characters, like I mentioned, and colors. And this all amounted to a style guide in the end. We also did brainstorming in Figma, so I would grab things for the game systems. There's a lot of data that's in Unity that you don't see on the front end, but it's just like a database of information. And we use that to create algorithms for the challenge of the characters and how the accessories impacted the characters throughout the scam. And I grabbed these from like dating apps where it's like the match percentage of how people are compatible with each other. And that was just brainstorming in Figma. We also did a lot of just like mock-ups of how a game loop could work or how the trust system worked. If you were to report somebody, if the conversation time has kept going, if the conversation has lagged, the match percent, and how that impacted the trust as well. And you can see the trust right here from the conversation earlier. Game systems are usually done in Excel or in a Google Doc. And this is all of the data that I was mentioning. So this is actually living within Unity as well, but I would do a lot of it in Excel so that I could just run kind of like simulations to understand how the base match rate came out to with all of the information that goes into it. And I like to make yellow cells on my Excel spreadsheets where I have variables for things that impact all of the functions throughout. So like for axis preferences, the min and the max impact the base match rate, which affects the match rate min and match rate max. So I don't edit these fields, but I do edit the yellows. I also have a link to the spreadsheet. It's just an example. Let me show you. So typically when I make a game, a lot of games have game systems, and you'll need game systems for narrative games or incremental games, which is like an idle game where the numbers go up. And you won't see this on the front end, and you may not see it in like the game itself on the store, but this is the type of information that goes into making a game. You just have so much.
Alexia, I think you're on mute, or I think you just.
Oh no, how long
Yeah,
have I been on mute?
just like you did when you were explaining about this sheet, the
Oh,
information.
okay.
Just a few seconds.
Just few seconds.
Oh, maybe I touched my headphone.
No problem.
Got it. Thank you, thank you. So this is the accessory sheet. So we made a tool in Unity to import and export this information really easily, and this all correlates to the accessories in the sheet. Going back to this tab. So this is just the basic art style guide that we made that was for all of the colors and patterns. when you make a system that is for the aesthetics of your game or your software, you usually develop patterns. Like in material design, they have colors for certain buttons. They have little dongles or switches for things for certain instances. And we decided to do that so that it was creating affordances and patterns for people to use some of the interactive pieces. And we wanted to draw attention to things that were yellow and have interactives as green. So I just mocked this up in Figma during the systems portion of this. So you can see here, we used green for the buttons, we used yellow to highlight things that we wanted to see, and we generally kept a consistent palette. This was also important so that we could have it aligned with all of the character. When you're using more than one artist, you obviously want things to look cohesive. So just making sure everybody was on the same page. And then just mock-ups and flows. And I was messing around with Figma Make, and it's a really great way to just make up quick mock-ups. I made a dashboard in like 1 second, but there would be a lot of tweaking to go through with that and make it into something usable. But I could see how this step that I did back in the day could be completely overhauled by using Figma Make. And generating just mockups based on a prompt, or like, or even maybe based on the game systems and the spreadsheets that I have. So these are just really chunky, ugly stuff, just to get to a point where we can put it in front of somebody and test it out and understand if it makes sense, and then also get to a point where we can just prototype it in Figma. So I also use Figma to organize all of the art assets. Our artist would export the assets, and then I would format them here so that I could organize them and see what we actually had, and then categorize them, and then export them for Unity eventually. I had always, back in the day, you had to make things powers of 2, so it was like 256 by 256 or 512 by 512. So I would format them in squares here. And for our work, it was important because we needed them all to be formatted in a way where they showed up well within the doll maker that we had. So this is more examples of icons. I would make icons in Procreate on the iPad and just draw it with my Apple Pencil, and then import it here, format it, and export it for Unity to be used in the correct format. It was just easier to organize, and then I could also talk with my team and understand like what we're missing, what we might need more of, rather than having it all just in Procreate. So eventually we got to the point where we could do a really ugly playtest. And let's see if I can share this video. This is actually a video of the tools that we created to quality assure all of the characters that we had. So we made a tool in Unity. It has all of the characters with accessories, all of the targets, and then all of the information that goes along with it. And this was just part of the playtesting process to understand that everything was working good. We were doing QA on all of the targets and such. Let me share this tab. So all of this enabled us to eventually get this into Unity, have a super gray, ugly thing, but at least we were able to test with people and understand what was working and what's not. And then we used Figma for launch as well. When you release something on the App Store or Steam even, or the Google Play Store, there's a lot of formatting to be done for the game images and the game trailer. So they have developer tools and developer documentation for what the sizing should be, and it's very specific, and it's different between App Store and Google Play. So you need to make sure that you're going with those guidelines and you have all the correct format. Thankfully, Figma has an awesome community of developers that are have templates for these things that you can use for the different sizes of the images. So you need like a 6.5, and then you also need a larger one, and then you also need an iPad version. So having a Figma that had all of that information was really useful just to understand and take stock of what I had and what I didn't have. And then I just have plugins linked here. So we have the Unity Figma importer. This has been really useful just to get things from the frames into the canvas and have it look exactly right. There's always the risk, and it always happens when you aren't doing things one-to-one and having some sort of importer. Things don't align correctly in Unity, or they don't look exactly like how you actually made it within Figma. And especially there's some degradation when you are working with somebody else. You have to go in and tweak everything yourself and get it just right. I also have the iOS safe area template here. This is from the Figma community as well, and I use this to design a lot of the things to be safe from the dynamic island and the notch, so that I wasn't going into that territory, and all of my buttons on the bottom were also in a safe territory for usability. And then I have the App Store and Play Store guidelines, which I mentioned before. And these are just from the developer documentation to use for the sizing of things. So the takeaways from this presentation are that Figma can be used in many steps of your process when designing games. I use it all the time. I've used Figma since 2017, working with the founder of Second Life. It's a great way to collaborate. I'm sure you all know this. I don't have to tell you guys. It's also a useful tool for final assets and creating things in a formatted way. And then there's many plugins to move your assets onto the canvas in Unity or any other game engines. If you are interested in starting games, I have linked Video Game Design for Dummies there. I've also linked my website for Bodeville, which has my games listed there and how we went about that. We have a few blogs that go into developing games with tools like Figma, tools like Unity, Godot, and then I also use Twine for a lot of tools, which is like a narrative tool for making branching narrative. I also have my website, my LinkedIn if you want to connect, and then a game design resource guide, which goes into, let me share this. This is just a blog post that I made that has a ton of resources for learning about games, learning about game design, gameplay progression fundamentals, guide to gray boxing and blockouts, and then a lot of different books. Some are really old, some are newer, some are around the business of games, some are around like player identity. So I keep this pretty updated, and it also has some games tools at the bottom as well. Oh, where'd it go? So engines like Unity, Godot, GameMaker, Construct 3, and Phaser.js. So Q&A, but I did want to show you my Figma, just so that you can get a sense of how I organize things within Grift. So let me pop over to that as well. Any questions so far?
We have a lot.
Oh, okay, cool.
There's actually a couple right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Do you want me to read one out for you?
let's
Yeah,
let's
go
While
for
you're-
it.
Figma first, or
What was that?
I think let's look into the Figma first, which you were showing.
Okay.
Make clear.
Yeah, let's do that. So this is the Figma that I used for developing this game. I cleaned it up a bit before this, but it's usually a lot messier. The references, so these are all the references throughout the stages that I had mentioned, like brainstorming and figuring out layouts and rendering and characters. And then I just kept a user flow of all of the screens. I'll zoom in a bit more. So screen by screen, just making sure I had all of the things in here. And I was only working with a really small team, so I didn't keep it super updated, but I made sure that it was in a state where we could talk about it as a team. So for instance, we had to do some of the payments between Apple and Google Play, so we had in-app purchases. So we just had to mock up this stuff and make sure that we had flows for each of it for the players when they purchase something with actual cash. And then this is the first time user experience up here. I also just had extra pages for some brainstorming things like the algorithms that I talked about. I kept all of my icons on one page so that I could just see them all at a glance. And same thing with all of the accessories. We just had a ton of accessories and images in this game, so I kept them really organized so that I could add to them. And I had to make sure that I kept this up to date with the spreadsheets and the spreadsheets up to date with this, so that everything was actually within the game at the end of the day. So we had like eyebrows and ears and eyes. And then some more brainstorming and charts. I also showed you that like tool where I had all of the characters, but I just had some of the main characters here. And this is all just, pieces and parts. So it's basically just making the doll maker within Figma. And that's pretty much it. So we could take some questions now. I can stop sharing.
Nice. This is very great. Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Over to you, Mario.
Yeah, so let's do some Q&As. There's a bunch over here. Okay, so this one comes from Rahul, who asks, what accessibility measures were implemented during game development?
For this game, we made sure that we were keeping everything in the safe area as just like a table stakes thing. We did testing with a wide variety of people just to make sure that they could see these things correctly. But admittedly, we didn't do a ton of accessibility work on this with like screen readers. We didn't include any localization. We didn't include any. I did some contrasting. So if I go to a website, I forget what it's called, but it does like the contrast checking as well as color blindness checking. So I would run some of our screens through that. I can grab you the link for it if you would like it. But we didn't focus a lot on it because we did this game in about 4 months or 5 months. And we really just wanted to get it out. Since games on the mobile app stores you just update them constantly. We wanted to get it out and get it tested. We had a lot of things to fix after we actually launched it. Like we had somebody who was using a folding phone and we didn't account for that at all. So we had to make updates based on the folding Samsung phone because it didn't fit and they couldn't play. So if I were to keep continuously updating this, I would do more accessibility updates. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great, actually. If we can just get the link then,
Yeah.
I'll drop it in the chat as well.
Let me find it.
Sure. And then the next question is actually from Dan himself, which is, when you go Procreate Figma to Unity, how do you ensure the quality stays consistent?
Procreate to Unity. I use Figma for this because it gives me the ability to format things properly and keep it a consistent formatting and keep it a consistent negative space around the icons. So for the icons specifically, I would make all of my sizing in Procreate like 2048 by 2048, like huge. And I don't want a 2048 by 2048 icon in my game. So I would export that from Procreate, scale it down a lot into Figma and make it like 512 by 512 at the max. And then just make sure that I had all of the same negative space like beyond the actual icon, so that everything was like, it looked about the same size. Oftentimes I would need to re-export after I had it in Unity, and I was like, well, that's not big enough for the actual size of the UI, and then just redo it from there.
Okay, that's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun work. uh, Next up, we have a question coming in from Thi Onyan, who asks, "What kind of research process helps craft games?" Fun.
Research process. Well, playing games. Play a lot of games. Oftentimes I
Exposure.
work with oftentimes I work with people who haven't. I'm still trying to find this website too. Sorry.
That's all right. Take your time. Even if you want to do it after the session, that's totally
Yeah,
fine.
I'll do it after.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll work with people who haven't played a lot of games, or maybe we haven't played the same games. So for instance, for this game, I worked with Bo. So Bo's my business partner, and I would run him through Picrew. And Picrew is that doll maker, that Japanese doll maker, just to show him like how it worked and how the community was using Picrew. And then we would play games together and maybe even just look at like people streaming things, or seeing what's on Reddit, like what's trending on Reddit, and just understanding the general like land of what's happening and what people are liking. When I made this game, scams were really hot on Netflix. Like there were a lot of like the Tinder swindler and just like a lot of scam documentaries or scam like profiles on Netflix. So people were really interested in it. So that research and just like consuming media, and then research as far as like playtesting. In larger organizations, we'll do focus groups and we'll do organized playtests and paid playtests. But for this, we were such a small team. We just scrounged up like people that we knew. I also teach at Art Center, so I often test with my students and see what they're liking. And they're usually younger, skewing. So they play a lot of different games than me or like my business partner or people that I interact with for the most part. And just, yeah, testing with people. And then I also post on Reddit. So there's r/destroy my game. I will post it in the chat. r/ r/destroy my game is a great subreddit for posting just work in progress of games, because people will just destroy your game, and it's not so it's more polite than what it sounds, and it's all constructive feedback to get information on how to improve the look and like what the game is. I'll also you have to check the rules, but r/game dev, r/indie dev are all great communities to get like in progress feedback on your work as well. So it's just a really iterative process, and you do a lot of research throughout time, even into if you use things like data.ai. Data.ai was previously called App Annie, and it's like Sensor Tower. It's like where you get all the information on the revenue and the stats on how games are doing, mobile games. Oh, and then one more, the Game UI database. I'm finding that as well. The Game UI database is a really great tool and resource, because oftentimes playing games takes a lot of time. And when you play games, you usually take screenshots of screens, and you are doing that thing in Figma where you're like collecting a lot of information so that you're developing an opinion of what your layout or whatever should be. So somebody put this together, and they are just accumulating a lot of game UI, which is awesome. So you can just search through there, and they use
like
AI.
Mobin, but for games only.
What's Mobin?
Oh, it's like screenshots of apps and websites.
Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's just for games. That's so cool.
Yes. And they use AI in the search. So if you search like shop, it'll find all of the text within those UI, and you can find things that say shop. It's really great.
That's awesome. And it ties really nicely into the next question, which is how do you usually test games early? Like, is it early sketches or low-fi prototypes?
Yeah, I'll test just lo-fi prototypes in Figma, just like click through, as simple as that. And if you remember that really ugly gray, just mock-ups and wireframes, testing that as soon as possible with just like your close friends, maybe your mom, your dad, just anyone that's close to you, just to get really quick
Hmm.
feedback. It may not have to be the target audience, but it's mostly just for like usability and understandability at that point. After that, you can branch out and get to people who would actually play your game or are interested in your game, like people who like Pit Crew. I had posted on the Pit Crew subreddit just some prototype videos to get early feedback on those once they were in a state that wasn't extremely like ugly in wireframes. It had some art style to it. I got a lot of feedback from Destroy My Game that my art style was too brown at some point and lacking contrast.
Mm,
So that's when we really like amped up the colors of the interactable objects from green and yellow and just added a lot more color into it because it was just like very flat and
right.
hard to read. Also, a piece of feedback that was on this game was the text is very difficult to read. I didn't go
Mm,
back and fix that because it was going to be a lot of work to fix all of the font, and we just were done making it at that point. I think that would be my first thing to fix if I were to update this game.
okay, that's pretty cool. So a lot of Reddit usage, which is pretty awesome
Yes.
because that's my go-to for like just day to day, but it's really cool to see it implemented in UX world as well.
Yeah.
So next up, we have a question from Sonia. Were there any gaps or challenges faced when using Figma to talk with your peers? So I guess to connect with them, maybe from people who don't use Figma on day-to-day basis.
Not for this project, but for I've worked with a lot of startups that are using Figma, and maybe the founder doesn't use Figma. I have also noticed that people on Windows have more of a lag when using Figma. But sometimes there's just people who don't know how to use it, and people that I work with at Meta as well. They just haven't used it before.
Okay.
They might be a little averse to like learning a new tool, even though this is like a very
Mm,
simple tool. And I just have to walk them through how to use it and make sure that they know how to like collaborate with me on it. I think that's the only challenge. Like I've used Adobe products for forever and
right.
Illustrator and Photoshop, and this just makes working together that much easier and
Yeah.
exponentially. So yeah, just getting people that might need to know how to use the tool, or they might need to know how to like make it work on their computer, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's a very collaborative tool, honestly. It's really awesome. And then speaking of Figma, the next question is, which Figma plugins or which widgets do you rely on the most?
Oh, what do I use? I really like the I forget what it's called, but it's like the image to vector converter. I
That's a
had
thing.
always,
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, it's
I
a
would love to know about that.
image tracing. So I had used that in
Yeah.
Illustrator all the time, and then it was something that I was lacking in Figma from the start. But there is a plugin
Okay.
for image tracing. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay,
Um,
because I just wrapped up a project recently that I had to manually convert a lot of the icons they wanted to use to vectors, and I tried a bunch of things online, but it just didn't come out right and did some research, but clearly not deep enough. I
oh,
should have done more.
it's called Vectorized Bitmap Trace Image.
Vectorize. Okay. I'll keep that for next time.
I'm just looking at my recents now. I have nine slice scaling. So if you don't know what nine slicing is, it's how you slice sprites so that they can scale. So like a box, and then it's so that the curved edges stay curved once you've exported it. And then I'll also use just remove background remover, super simple.
Yeah. That's actually very awesome. Thank you for that. Next question comes from Ridi, who asks, what communities would you recommend to find collaborators, and how should I approach people for collaboration?
I always use Reddit. Let me write this in the chat. Vectorized bitmap trace image. Vectorized. I think that's the one you were asking for, Mohammed.
Yeah.
Okay. On Reddit, I would recommend looking at what is it called? Let me check real quick. There's a few communities on Reddit where you can search for people who are interested in working with you. r/INAT, and I can't tell you what that stands for. I would have to read the thing, but let me post it in the chat. This is where people are looking for people to work with. They might be hiring for folks, or they might be just looking for somebody to collaborate with something on. And then there's also game dev classifieds. This is the same thing. I'm not sure what the differences are, but I use these two just to look for people. Like the top post on here is looking for artists to create Steam capsule for my game.
Okay, nice.
I would also recommend Global Game Jam, checking that out, and then also itch.io, because for global, you can just find like a place that is hosting it locally. Since the pandemic, I think things have opened up. I don't know how it is over there, but it's been a couple of years. And just finding somewhere locally and then going there and then talking with people, and then you can usually find people who want to team up and make something.
That's very cool. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Okay, this question
Do we have a repeat?
I'm sorry?
Do we have more questions? Actually, I wanted to ask Alexia another question directly.
Yeah, go for it.
Alexia, so in this region, especially where we are sitting right now, we don't have a lot of game design culture overall, right? We are heavy on digital product design, UI UX, um, and also like where I'm coming from. I remember back in 2012 and 13, we used to make designs for we used to make games for Figma and Adobe Photoshop. That was a tool we used to have it right now. But how do you see game like industry overall? Because I know like it's a $1 billion industry, everyone everywhere is booming right now. But how do you see the most common challenges designers face in the beginning of their career, or what are the things they should be doing right now to to be ready about like different career directions? Because right now I think the only industry which is in boom right now is UI UX, but practically the underlying theory is the same, principles are same, accessibility, readability, how how easy it is for people to understand what interface you're making, right? So maybe that gives some of us a variety to look more unique. But how do you see the game industry overall?
I think the biggest challenge for people just starting out is just finding the information of these, like r/INAT is very like esoteric, and I wouldn't have known that is a thing without being involved. Or like in school, it was just like when we were in undergrad, we would just share information. So having that community of people just to like bounce ideas off of or find new information, and obviously the internet is very huge and you can find things, but it's all a matter of like, where do you go to find it and see that info. I think this also contributes to people not being able to progress or finish their game because they don't know about progression spreadsheets, or they don't know about these games tools yet. And just knowing like how to keep going in their game and also just keep motivated. Having a community of people is very motivating. Even if it's online and you're posting it on r/destroy my game, getting that feedback and getting those likes, or even just like people critiquing it, is very motivating.
Mm,
Um, Going to work and having people to do a design crit with, or do just like ask somebody that's sitting next to you, like, what do you think of this? We take it for granted, or I take it for granted a lot of the time, and just getting that feedback is really motivational to keep going. So I would say just try and join a community if you can, or create your own community of people. Looking at global game jam and these game jams and seeing if you can meet up with folks.
mhm.
um, yeah, I would say, yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
Cool,
Awesome.
interesting.
And are there any YouTube channels or forums that maybe you'd recommend outside of the ones you mentioned on Reddit?
I don't. Uh, yes, so I have some in that game design resource guide. Game Maker's Toolkit. Hang on, I'm trying to Game Maker's Toolkit. That's just like a pretty prevalent person who just
Mm,
breaks down games. I think that I don't really use anything specific because I just look for the tutorial and figure out how to
yeah.
make the thing. Um, yeah, but other than that, if you can find maybe a game studio that you like that's in Dubai, and I know that there's stuff in Dubai because I've seen job listings for things over here, like on LinkedIn.
Mm,
And then just like finding those people, maybe connecting with them, even if it's not for a job, but just to like have the community. Oh, Ubisoft,
right.
cool. And then seeing if they have any smaller game meetups. Like in Los Angeles, there's a Hyperlight Drifter was a game that was made by a small studio here a while
Mm,
back, and they host this really like niche game night in downtown. Um,
yeah.
it took me a while to find it. I only found it through like meetup.com.
Mm,
And just look for those types of things and just go to those and develop a community.
yeah. Well, Friends of Figma has been trying to do that right now. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I think everyone here on this chat and on this virtual event is you guys are doing great. This is what we're here for, and we're going to continue to do so. Um, I believe this is it for our Q&A sessions. Once again, Alexia, I really want to thank you so much for taking your Sunday morning to do this. It's 7 a.m. for you now, I think, right?
yeah. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
you can go back to sleep.
I will.
I just want to thank you once again for this session. It was very informative, very open-minded. Thanks again for the Vectorize plugin. I'm gonna like just give you a shout out every time I use it. This has been so awesome. I yeah, if there's that's it, Dan, if you wanna also say a few words.
I think
Oh,
I'm
someone said that like they can actually see the sun rising.
Yeah.
yeah, you'll see. Thank you, Alexia. This has been great. I think the whole idea for us doing this is exactly letting people think, or like triggering that thought where, like, Figma is not just a tool just to design your plain UI UX mobile app. You have to think beyond that. Um, and like this is one of the best use cases you can actually try and explore what Figma can do. So entire game has been designed in Figma. It has been like tested in Figma, researched in Figma. So this is such a valid use case. I think I have a feeling right now that we are not utilizing Figma to the level where we can, because like, okay, I have
Mm,
done a lot of work, but like that is hardly product design, but haven't explored the game design piece of it. And I'm sure there will be a lot of things which I can learn, like
yeah.
even like this small plugins like Vectorize and all. I personally think that, yeah, that side of the Figma I still have to explore it. So yeah, thank you, Alexia. Thank you for this entire motivation and, like, opening this universe for us.